In this video, we're going to discuss multi-step equations. Before we get to the multi-step equations, though, I want to just review distributive property. Distributive property is when you have a term on the outside of parentheses and then you have some sort of polynomial on the inside of parentheses. Usually it's a binomial. Usually it's just two terms, but sometimes it could be more than two terms. And what you want to do is you want to multiply, because remember, parentheses in math typically means multiply. So we're going to multiply this negative 10 times the 2y minus 7. And the way we do that is we multiply the negative 10 times each term inside the parentheses. So basically we distribute that negative 10 into the parentheses, multiplying times each of those terms. So negative 10 times 2y would be negative 20y. And then negative 10 times, and we treat this as a negative 7. It's a minus 7. We treat it as a negative 7. Negative 10 times negative 7 is going to be plus 70. Let's look at one other one. I actually had this one as just a negative. So if you have just a negative on the outside parentheses, all that means is just change everything in the parentheses to its opposite. And so when I change when I change 9x to its opposite, it's going to be a negative 9x. And then plus 8 is going to change to a minus 8. You can also look at this as being like a negative 1 right here, and then multiply negative 1 times both of the terms in the parentheses. Okay, so that's distributive property. Let's look at some multi-step equations. And I'm starting with multi-step equations instead of two-step and three-step and whatever, because to me, I think it's easier just to go ahead and jump into the multi-step. So I have some steps over here for solving multi-step equations. And they probably don't make sense if you just read through them, but hopefully they will as I work through these. So you might notice that we have the same expression here that we had in the previous slide. So the first thing we're going to do is distributive property on both sides of the equation. So I'm going to do the same thing that I did in the previous slide with this negative. I'm going to change these to their opposites. So I'm going to end up with negative 9x minus 8 minus x, so that's a 1x. If you want to put a 1 in there, you can, equals negative 6. And then we have the same thing again. We have minus and then these terms in the parentheses. So we're just going to change them to their opposites, minus 8x. And then that's going to change to a plus 6. The next thing I want to do is combine like terms. So that's step 2, combine like terms. So let's look at, and that's on each side. Don't worry about combining anything from the left side and the right side, but just on each side combine like terms. So on the left side, I have a negative 9x and I have a negative 1x. I need to combine those. Negative 9x and negative 1x is negative 10x, and then just bring down the 8 equals. And then I want to combine like terms in this expression over here on the other side. So I'm going to do a different color over here. My only like terms over here are negative 6 and positive 6, and that's a zero pair, so they cancel out. So the only thing I have left over here is negative 8x. And I forgot to put my x right here with the negative 10. All right, so my next step is circle out of place items, or circle out of place terms. What I mean by that is I like to end up with variables on the left and constants on the right. So I want my numbers that are by themselves on the right side of the equals. I want my variables on the left. I like for it to say x equals 2 or x equals whatever. That's my personal preference, but it also helps me to teach my students how to work these multi-step equations. So what I mean, again, is I want variables on the left. So variables equals constant. So variables on the left, constants on the right. So what I'm looking for is I'm looking for anything that's not in this order or on the right side, the correct side of the equals. So I have a constant, a negative 8 constant. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to circle it, and I'm going to circle that minus 2 because this is a negative 8 that's going to move. So that's on the left side. So any constants on the left side, I just want to find them, and I'm going to move them in a minute. And then variables that are on the right side, I'm also going to move those. So I'm going to move this negative 8x over to the left. Okay, so then the next step says, move the out of place terms to the other side, change them to their opposite. So, and you know that when you solve an equation, you're going to add the opposite to the other side. So I have a, let's move this variable first. Okay, so I have a negative 8x. So I need to put a positive 8x over here, and I'm going to put it underneath this negative 10x. I'm going to be combining those in just a minute. And then this -8, I'm going to put a +8, so I need to change it to a +8 over here. Well, I'm not adding it to anything because there's nothing to add it to. So then once I've done that, I can mark these out. But you got to remember to change them to the opposite. So basically what I'm doing is I'm adding 8 over here and I'm adding 8x over here, which is exactly the same thing you would do when you were solving an equation. Now let's combine. So now I need to combine the like terms that are on each side that are, not marked out. -10x and +8x is -2x. Go ahead and bring down your equals. You definitely want your equals to be there. And then +8 plus nothing is +8, or just 8. Now I'm left with a one-step equation, and number 6 says solve the remaining one-step equation. So just divide by -2 on both sides. X equals -4. We're going to look at one more multi-step equation. So the first thing I want to do is my distributive property on each side. So I'm going to do this part and this part, and just bring everything else down. So I'm bringing down the -2b. -7 times -b is plus 7b. -7, and so I did that part right there, and I'm now do this part right here. -7 times -3 is plus 21, and then bring down that plus 4. And then I'm going to distribute that 4 into the parentheses. 4 times b is 4b. 4 times 7 is plus 28. Okay, next step says combine like terms. So I need to combine my like terms that I want to combine. I can combine this -2b and the 7b. Now let's do a different color. On this side, I can also combine the 21 and the 4. And then there's nothing to combine on the right side, so I'm just going to bring that down. So -2b plus 7b is 5b. 21 plus 4 is 25. And then bring down the other part, the other side. Now, we can highlight what's in the wrong place, or we can circle what's in the wrong place. Let's just go ahead and circle. So look on the left side of the equals. If there are any constants on the left side of the equals, circle them. So I'm going to circle the +25. Look on the right side. If there are any variables on the right side, circle them. Okay? And then I'm going to add the opposite, which is -25 or -25 on this side. I'm going to add the opposite, which is -4b on this side. I'm done with this and this. 5b minus 4b is 1b. Bring down your equals. And then 28 minus 25 is 3. So b equals 3. And that's it.